Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SDHQ Podcast, Episode 6. I'm Noah Kupetsky, CEO of Steam Deck HQ, here with Richard, who is also known as Fan the Deck on YouTube. How you doing, Richard?
I'm doing great, man. I've been having a great week. I've been getting some gaming in. I just got the PSVR while it was on sale, and then I got the PC adapter.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. How is it? I've heard good and bad things about the adapter, so I'm
Yeah.
curious.
So I haven't hooked it up yet. I just got it.
No.
I got it yesterday, and I'm getting the DisplayPort cable this morning. So I got this late last night. So I haven't set it up yet. And I heard you can set it up even just without the dongle. You can do just straight USB-C.
Is this PSVR 2?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've heard, not that it's straightforward to do, but I've heard that at least one person has set it up using the USB-C straight to the motherboard. So if you have the right, spec USB-C port on your motherboard, you should be able to get it to work. But I haven't looked into it yet. I just bought the dongle. I don't have any VR games yet, right? I'm gonna buy Half-Life Alyx, Beat Saber. This is my first real time actually getting into VR. And I know it's like way past the time, right? Like that other people have gotten into VR, but it reminds me of like back in the day when you would buy like a console, like well after like it's established like a lineup and you get to just enjoy the back catalog for cheap. Yeah. That's what I'm feeling right now.
Well, I can say I actually was an early adopter of VR. I got the first HTC Vive when that released in 2016. Wow. And I remember how excited I was. I went to a GameStop about 45 minutes to an hour away from me just to try the device.
Holy cow.
Before it was great. I mean, I loved it. I did the drawing game. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was one of the first VR experiences and one of the ones that they advertised like HTC Vive with.
3D drawing then?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah,
so I got that, and I mean, ever since then I love VR. Like I've got a PSVR 1. I don't really use it, but that's because I also have the Valve Index.
Yeah.
And I have a Quest 3 that's actually sitting on my desk right here.
Where's VR HQ?
Oh, man.
I'm not going to put more on your plate. Don't do it.
Steam Deck HQ is just so busy. There's so much that we're working on. And on top of that, we have Gamescom that we've been prepping for. And we're going to Tokyo Game Show. So it's too
You're
much.
Be real busy, buddy.
Yeah. The good thing about Tokyo is that my wife is coming with me, and it felt weird. It felt weird if I was going to go without her, since Japan is like a place that we both have like expressed interest in and wanting to go to together. So going without her just didn't feel right. And we got to pull some strings. And
I'm guessing not a long flight for you, right? Like it's not.
It's less about that. It's just cheap. So I think it's around a 6-hour flight. Which is a solid amount of time. Not too bad for me, since I'm used to flying from here to US or here to Germany, which is like 18 to 20 hours.
Yeah.
But it cuts down like the time. So the flight to go to like Japan is usually like for a round trip over $1,000. So my flight to Japan, a round trip, is around like 250 to 300.
That's insane.
No, I'm looking forward. I think I'm going to be really like pushing into like covering Asia events, since I have this opportunity to do so. So like Gamescom Asia, Bit Summit, the Taipei Game Show, Tokyo Game Show, China Joy, I'm considering. All these events that are around here that, if I was in the US, it would cost thousands and thousands of dollars to go to.
100%.
I can do for extremely cheap right now.
You think Valve wasn't at the last TGS, right? Like they were at the one before that.
No, I thought
they were at the last one too.
I thought they were at 2023. Okay. I thought so. It might have been 22.
Yeah.
But I have to remember when they launched the Steam Deck. It was probably 22 actually. Because they launched the Steam Deck in Japan and other Asian countries with Komodo.
Yeah.
And they were there for that. And I don't recall it being while the OLED was being released.
Right, exactly.
So I think it was 22. I don't know if they're going to be there. I hope they still have that like Steam Deck store, because I want to go to that while I'm there. But I have been talking to some people who are going to be at Tokyo Game Show, and there's some things that are starting to line up that I think is going to be really cool.
That's
And
exciting,
a
man.
huge I'm shocked that we have these kinds of opportunities. Like we
100%.
were I mean, when I started this year, there were 2 events that I told myself that I have to go to this year. That's my goal. And that's Summer Game Fest and Tokyo Game Show.
Wow.
And
And you're
to
doing both
have
of them.
hit it,
You did Summer
both
Game
is
Fest, and now you're getting TGS. Amazing.
yeah, no, it's insane. I feel so lucky to be able to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you saw, I posted a tweet earlier too that well, my favorite game is Kingdom Hearts, my favorite game of all time. And we reviewed the Kingdom Hearts games coming to Steam, their ports.
Yeah.
And I reviewed every single game. I played through all of them, and
Wow.
I'll take any excuse to play through Kingdom Hearts. But they put my review in their store page for Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5. It's me and then Sportskeeda. So it's just that was like a mind-blowing event to just see.
Oh, you muted yourself. Nope.
I fixed it.
There you go. You're back.
God damn it. All right. Either way, it was mind blowing. I love Kingdom Hearts. Seeing the review there is like a dream come true. And if anyone from Square Enix or the PR people who sent the game is watching this, thank you guys so much. I can't say that enough. It was just dreams coming true.
Amazing. That's great to hear.
Right?
Yes.
All right. Why don't we get into the actual topics we have today instead of me just going on and on about how great Kingdom Hearts is?
Let's do it.
So we've got a ton of topics today. So I'm going to breeze through the games that have those Steam Deck updates just so we can get to like the good topics, because there's a lot that happened in the past week to talk about.
Yeah.
So we do probably one of the biggest ones is Helldivers 2. They got a new Steam Deck graphics preset alongside their big new update, which had new difficulty level, new enemies, a new biome or world. I think they're calling it a world, but it's basically just a biome.
Sure.
So that's really cool. I don't think it performs better on the Steam Deck because we basically tested on their lowest settings and it still has those drops. I would not play the new difficulty setting because it does have bigger outposts, which means more enemies. And oh man, it's already hard to run it on the Steam Deck.
Yeah. So is the new preset, is it somewhere between lowest and like medium? Have you seen yet?
I haven't actually played with it yet. I just assume that it's at the lowest.
Okay.
I don't think it actually is, because usually a Steam Deck preset, they do try to set it higher.
Yeah.
But we tested it on the lowest and it was hard to enjoy completely.
Yeah.
Still possible. Just expect lots of drops when tons of enemies are on screen and the action gets real heavy.
Yeah.
So I don't think they can get around that. Then we have Enlisted, which is a World War II first-person shooter MMO, which is actually it has a cool concept where you're a leader controlling an AI squad in battle. They had an update where they fixed terrain artifacting, so there shouldn't be any issues when looking at the ground or like looking ahead of you when there was before. So
nice.
It looks better, which is nice.
Yeah.
Celico
Heck yeah.
got Steam Deck.
Love this game. Yeah.
It's such a good game, right?
So good, yeah.
So Celico got Steam Deck verified. It happened last week.
Yeah.
But they got Steam Deck verified. We reviewed it and it was running fine, but they had one issue which seemed to be stopping them from getting verified and kept them as unsupported. If you changed the game so that it wasn't in full screen, it would basically just break.
Yeah.
You would have to find a way to change it back without going in game essentially.
Yeah.
And they fixed the issue. It sounds like they did a little bit more than that, but there was a thread that they posted that specifically mentioned that issue being what's stopping them. So
yeah,
that's probably just it. But at the same time, the wording they use sound like there was more to it. But either way, it's verified now.
Yeah, and to your point, it was a game that already ran really well. There were some like weird scenes, I think specifically outdoor. I don't think like Doom is just a very good engine for outdoor scenes, even,
No, it was terrible. Like
Yeah.
I don't think it's gotten any better, but oh man, just there were a couple of parts in the game where like you were outside or on the roof
Yeah.
and the frame rate would just tank.
Yeah.
And it's not that I can't use the power either. The power drain stayed very low, like below 8 watts, but
Yeah.
just it could not the engine just could not handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but those were pretty few and far in between. Most of the game is pretty much indoors, tight corridors, and
Yeah.
a lot of fun action.
Oh, it's fantastic. If you haven't
Yeah.
picked it up yet, amazing first person shooter. One of my two favorites. My other one is Mullet Mad Jack, and they just put our best on deck badge on their store page. That was another cool thing.
If that's one of your
great
two
thing.
favorite and Mullet Mad Jack is the second one, then I really
Yeah.
need to play that. I still haven't played it yet. So
Oh, it's so good. It runs really well on the Steam Deck too. I still went a little bit lower than 60 just to save on battery, but it's possible to play it at 60. Fantastic time.
Yeah.
I
Amazing.
highly recommend it if you like high octane action.
I do.
Well, then this is up your alley. Next, we have Dune Spice Wars, which on the Steam Deck, the game would launch twice, which would cause severe performance drops. So that was fixed. Not sure why it would launch twice, but that's how bugs are. So that's been fixed. So performance should be significantly better on the Steam Deck now, which is great because I love games like this.
Yeah.
It's a 4X strategy game. I'm a sucker for them. I'm so excited. I can't tell everyone how excited I am for Civilization 7. Absolutely.
Do you play these on Steam Deck?
I play for the most part, yes. I really don't play outside of my Steam Deck anymore.
Yeah, same.
But I've just gotten used to it. So yeah, I've been playing.
For the people that have been following my channel, when I say same, I am referring to PC handhelds broadly, right? Like I have been mostly playing the ROG Ally X since I got it. So yeah.
Well, I only cover Steam Deck stuff right now. We might go back to other handhelds soon.
Yeah.
It really just our backlog and our work log coming in is just piling up. Like there's so many more things that are happening now that we are able to cover. So
yeah,
there's like preview events. We have one to talk about coming up, and just Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show, and just oh man, it's daunting, but really fun. Yeah. Either way, good that Dune Spice Wars fixed that. Makes me happy. Shadows of Doubt got an experimental patch that just released in that branch, which actually has new default settings for the Steam Deck to make it run better, and they increased the font size for resolutions at 1280 by 800 and under, which they mentioned 1280 by 800 because that's Steam Deck specifically. But that's fantastic. I love Shadows of Doubt, so seeing it get some new fixes and just increasing the font size makes me very happy.
I'll just say I know it's not easy for developers, and man, developers are getting a larger checklist of things to do every day. But I would prefer if it's not even limited to 800p, right? Like and below. Yeah. Just let me scale the font size. I'll take care of it. You give me the recommended, and then let me go from there.
Well, luckily they said and under, so that fits good. Perfectly. Yeah. But I do agree. I mean, there are probably, especially for like hard to run games, one of the big tricks to get it to run better is lowering resolution, especially when it's GPU bound. There's a game we're playing right now where it is very locked. Like the GPU is what's causing the biggest issues. So we've been playing around with lowering the resolution using FSR. But it really helps if you can, lower the resolution and the font size will kind of scale with it.
Yeah.
So that is nice that they do that. The last one is Rogue Ganesha or Ganesia. I'm not sure how to say it.
I would have assumed a soft G.
Yeah. So. Rogue Ganesia.
Ganesha? I don't know.
I honestly, it's beyond me. And I'm very sorry to the developers. But they had a couple of fixes for the Steam Deck, which is like improving how you can navigate like equipment and in general with a gamepad or the Steam Deck. They increased the tooltip size for like achievements on the Steam Deck, and they increased detail size so that it's easier to see on like the smaller screen. And yeah, no, great game as well.
Nice, awesome. I've never heard of it, so
yeah. Oh, it's really fun. Definitely recommend if you like, Vampire Survivors. Then there was a small Proton experimental update that fixes Space Engineer's intro video, which had a black screen if you tried to watch it. There's some new games that are playable from this update as well. I think the highlight for me was Flatout 3, though I believe that the developers who took over actually updated the game, so it should theoretically be running, but they're not going to be doing anything extra for it. So there was a bunch of updates that came out for the Flatout games, and it updated Flatout 1, 2, and then Ultimate Carnage, I believe. And they all look fantastic. But the people who took over are not going to be doing much more for Flatout 3 like they did for 1 and 2, where they added like achievements, they added full Steam Deck support. But I mean, the people who took over, their name is Zoom Platform. Really, really great people. I've talked to them a bit about it, but they have like workshop support now and just all this stuff. But I don't think Flatout 3 is going to get the same treatment.
Got it.
But yeah, a good Proton experimental update. And then last thing before we get into the regular topics, I do want to bring up a couple of sales going on right now and bundles, which are just fantastic. Fanatical Summer Sale is going on right now, and there's a ton of amazing games that are on sale there. They also have these flash deals that they keep on, like, where it's 3 new games every day, and they're pretty heavily discounted. I think today, if you're listening to this now, it's not going to be the same games, but today they have Batten Kaitos 1 and 2 remastered on there, and it's the lowest price I've seen it. So that's really cool and good to check out for. But just the sale in general has some great games there. But if you really want to get some good deals, there are 2 Humble bundles going on right now that are just phenomenal. There is the older one of the 2 is the Lego bundle, which includes some of the biggest Lego games that have come out in the past, not including Skywalker Saga, but I believe there is an 85%
heavily,
off coupon for it.
Yeah, heavily discounted. So
yes,
yeah.
But it has like Marvel Superheroes 2, which is my personal favorite. There's something about Superheroes 2 where they went for like a semi-open world and you can like travel around as your favorite like Marvel heroes. I thought that was just awesome.
Nice.
DC Supervillains is great. And then they have the classic ones in there too. They got Harry Potter, they got Lego Batman, they got Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. Great lineup of games, 100% good deals, $15 for all of them. I don't think it gets better than that.
No, that's pretty great.
Yeah. Or at least I didn't expect it to get better than that. And then they bring out the Capcom bundle. So there's the Capcom Summer 2024 bundle, which is $30 for all these games, which is a lot, but you're getting Ghost Trick, you're getting the 2 Ace Attorney games, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and then Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, all of the Dead Rising games, Street Fighter 5.
-1, number 1 for some reason. That's on Steam, isn't it?
You're right. Yeah, Dead Rising 1 is not on there, but it's probably because they're doing the whole
that was my
remaster remake, which looks phenomenal. I can't wait for it. Dead Rising is one of my favorite series. Like, I have fond memories of like having my Xbox 360 and hearing about the game, and I just being like, "Oh my god, you can go to a mall and just demolish zombies with anything there? That sounds awesome."
Yeah, that's
and it
great.
was.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
And then Dead Rising 2 just like upped the ante even more. But having Dead Rising 2 off the record, 3 and 4 is what's in the bundle. Great games though. Dragon's Dogma 1 is also in there, which is always nice to throw in. But $30 for all of that when like Ghost Trick just by itself is $30 or Ace Attorney games are just $30 by themselves. You can't get better than that. Those are 2 amazing bundles, and so definitely check them out. We'll have links to all these bundles and sales in the description for the video, though.
The choice the monthly choice was a surprising, at least for me, surprisingly good one too, right? Sifu, High on Life, Blacktail, and that alone is pretty good. And that alone is reason enough for me to be like, oh, okay, I will try Gotham Knights. I was never going to buy it myself, but I'll go ahead and redeem it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and of all the games there, I think all the games are great on the Steam Deck except for Gotham Knights. Though, have you tried it yet? No?
I have not, no.
I am curious what you think. Let me know when you do try it. But like
Okay.
Sifu is great on it. High on Life it runs well. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but I remember that was one of the first games that we got pre-release, and it was we got it the same day it released. For whatever reason, it was releasing in the
I remember you being
afternoon, and
excited
we got
about
it in the
that
morning.
too, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember your reaction to that, so that's pretty cool.
I was blown away by that one. But yeah, no, the Humble Choice is a great bundle as well. But I don't think there's anything else. I say we get right into the meat of this episode.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to address before we get into the big topics, this is a big topic too, is we are back. We had a little bit of a break in the podcast. Everyone was kind of a little bit too busy to keep on going and figure out a schedule just yet. There was a lot of developments happening on all of our sides, mine, Richard's, and Kyle's or Cryobite. So it did take a little bit of a break. Obviously, we are back now. And we have some new measures in place just to make sure that if we're busy, we can still pump out an episode. So I would expect us to not have any more like skipped weeks. This is going to be going from now on. The only week that is a little bit in question is Gamescom. So Gamescom, I'm going to be in Germany. I'm going to try to set it up and bring the stuff I need to make sure that we can still record an episode. And, that'd probably be pretty cool from Gamescom. But my schedule is packed, and I mean packed. So there's no guarantee, but I'm going to try. Tokyo Game Show is another one. I'm not 100% sure yet, but I think I should be able to make that one. But either way, we are back. We are continuing. The podcast was on a brief pause, but we love doing this, and we ain't stopping.
For sure. Yep.
And yeah, that's that. I got that out of the way. Let's start getting into the updates that has been going on through the past week.
For sure.
We'll start. I want to start with a smaller one. Prince of Persia: The Last Crown just came to Steam. It unlocked, I want to say yesterday, and Ubisoft has been bringing over their past games to Steam a little bit more frequently now. We saw it with like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and a couple of others that are escaping me. But Prince of Persia: The Last Crown was their newest one, and we thank you, Ubisoft. They sent over a key for the Steam version for us to review. So we are still reviewing it. Nice. But it unlocked for us yesterday with everyone else. And they sent it over, so thank you. It's phenomenal on the Steam Deck. I know it was running well before too, but I never tried it on the Steam Deck. It is phenomenal.
Yeah. I have the UB version, and that runs very well on the Steam Deck. Even emulating the Switch version runs very well on the Steam Deck. So like however you own it, you can play it on the Steam Deck pretty well. So it does look like the Steam version, I haven't bought it yet, but it does look like the Steam version does have the launcher, right?
It does, yes.
Yeah.
Though I didn't have to log in. I think right now, if you have logged in once in a different Ubisoft game, it remembers.
Yeah. Oh, that's
so
nice.
I didn't have to re-log in. I didn't have to. I tried. So the Lost Crown does have a RAM usage issue. If you try to play on Ultra, it will run out of RAM and crash the game.
Interesting.
Which they advertise that you could run it on Ultra at 90 frames per second, and you can.
I saw that, yeah.
It is possible. That's why it shocked me how well it was running. It was running at Ultra quality at 90 frames per second, and it was staying under 16-watt battery drain for the most part. Phenomenal. Like, kudos to them for optimization. But it uses so much RAM, and it will lead to crashes. But when I tested it on my two OLED Steam Decks, and I didn't have to log into the launcher on either one of them, and I don't think I logged into any Ubisoft launcher on the second one. So might link it with the Steam account. And
what about
it's not that
offline
big
play?
deal anymore. I believe it can be played offline. For whatever reason, it escaped me. I have not tested, but I have tested other Ubisoft games that have the launcher and they can be played offline. I think it's just the first time you run it and it installs it, it has to be connected to the internet.
Makes sense.
But I would say most games have that requirement now.
Yeah. And then the last gripe I have with UB games that come to Steam, this one included, unfortunately, is that they don't support like Steam features most of the time, including cloud saves. So that's kind of frustrating.
That's so weird. Do they really not support cloud save? I'm almost 100% sure. I don't know. It doesn't say it there, but when I logged in on the second Steam Deck, I had my save from my first one.
Oh, that's weird.
So maybe it's I think Ubisoft Connect has cloud saves.
Got it.
So that might be why they don't do it there, but they did implement controller support through Steam for the game. Works really well.
Yeah.
What is it? It says they have Steam achievements too, but I don't recall seeing any pop up, so that might be bugged. But in general, like I would say that this is a pretty good release. And if you're willing to like go to like high settings instead of ultra, this is a phenomenal game to play on the Steam Deck.
Yeah. I'll say we've already mentioned two of my favorite 3 games of the year, right? It's the Sulaco and Prince of Persia are 2 of the top 3 games I played this year. So
would it be the Lost Crown, or are you talking about? Have you played the Rogue Prince of Persia?
I have, but I'm talking about the Lost Crown. I like Rogue Prince of Persia, but not nearly as much as this.
Interesting. Like Rogue Prince of Persia gives me more vibes to like the older Prince of Persia games, though.
Yeah, no,
like
I can see that.
The original ones.
Yeah.
Like it feels more like that, which I liked a lot. Yeah. But the Lost Crown is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
like I'm loving it so far.
Metroidvanias are definitely like in my top genres. So
yeah,
this is a game that was made for me, and like the way the combat is oriented, like very much, that sort of character action, like Devil May Cry inspiration.
Oh yeah, it's addicting.
It's really addicting. So
I love this game. Speaking of like Devil May Cry-esque gameplay, this isn't even one of our topics. Have you heard of the game Gory Cuddly Carnage?
No, I'm
okay. It just got a demo on Steam. I think it just released. It is ridiculous, but the gameplay is just so addicting. And Devil May Cry, if you're a fan of Devil May Cry, they have a similar form of like combat mechanics in the game.
Oh, this is out later this month. I will check it out for sure.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, again, tangent on a tangent, but just the Devil May Cry reminds me. The ROM hacking story from last week with ROM hacking shutting down. So that inspired me to just like keep a closer eye on the scene, which is something I've been meaning to do for a long time. And one of the things about ROM hacking, and to a degree this is still going to be true, is that like it was nice that it was a hub that I could go to, right? So like, now I have to start thinking about like other sources and things like that. Anyway, my point is I stumbled upon F3. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
F3 is just like, 3D Realms and other companies, they do that like first person shooter convention, like virtual show, not convention, but virtual show that they do every year. Realms Deep, right? So F3 is basically that for fan games. So
interesting.
And it happened recently, and there's a mod for a Hat in Time randomist game to make this mod for, where there's like Devil May Cry combat added to the game with like ultra kill.
How?
I don't know. Like, I'll send you a link later.
Yeah, please. I'm very curious. I love Hat in Time, so that would be all right. I'm interested.
I showed my son, who I think that's my son's probably his favorite game, Hat in Time, and he's like, "Yeah, I want to download this immediately."
Well, I'm really excited to see it for myself. It's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so good. I'm happy with the Lost Crown so far, and I think Ubisoft did a good job porting it to Steam. I wish they would do more like day and date Steam releases instead of like releasing it just on Ubisoft Connect and Epic Games. But
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
technically you can still play it through Ubisoft Connect on the Steam Deck. It's just not. It's going to have. It could have more issues due to it being outside of Steam with their shader cache and everything.
Yeah, I'll say for me, I like more for me is the supporting of Steam features, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I Steam is my central library for the most
Yeah.
part, and everything else sort of hovers around Steam. So it's very like Steam is heliocentric in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm the type of person that like, oh, okay, this came out on Switch. I can wait 6 months. I can wait a couple years for it to come out to Steam.
Yeah.
And then that'll be like the definitive version. And I just
Mm-hmm.
feel, I mean, I haven't played it yet, but this, some of the things here do seem a bit shy of feeling like the definitive version that I want. But
Yeah.
that's a personal taste thing.
No, I can understand that though.
Yeah.
I can, especially when you look at so many other games that have and utilize all of Steam's features. Like it feels like it's missing something.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
speaking of games coming to Steam, God of War Ragnarok's PC requirements just came out, and that's the PlayStation bringing it to Steam. That was a good connection. Anyways,
Yeah, you did it.
yes. So God of War Ragnarok's requirements are out, and I was actually kind of shocked by them. It sounds like it should run pretty well on the Steam Deck. The low settings or the minimum is going for 1080p at 30 frames per second.
Yeah.
And the GPU requirement is high. It's a GTX 16 or 1060, a GTX 1060, and an AMD RX 5500 XT. CPU is an i5 4670K or a Ryzen 3 1200. Asks for 8 gigabytes of RAM, and honestly, that all fits within the Steam Deck's possibilities. But they're going for 1080p, which is higher than what the Steam Deck uses, and that's at native resolutions. So there's no upscaling that is being used in these specs.
Yeah.
Which means it should probably be able to push way more than that. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited.
The most painful part about this is probably going to be the storage at 190 gigabytes.
I know.
That's a whole lot. But no, I agree. I think this is going to be pretty playable. I would have been surprised, but I was reminded, right, that this is basically the same engine as God of War 2018.
Yeah.
A little bit improved, but the visuals,
Mm-hmm.
it plays well on PS4 is my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I am also very excited about this.
Yeah.
Problem being, I still haven't finished God of War 2018. So
Come on, man.
Yeah, I know.
It's how have you not finished it? It's so good. I remember when it came out, I couldn't stop. I had to finish it as soon as possible.
Yeah, and the reason I stopped is the worst reason possible.
Oh no.
So like I have like a bit of a completionist streak, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to like wane it down quite a bit. But especially at that time, like 2018, there was you remember like the arena? What's that called? Like the little arena where you have these challenges and the challenges scale up.
I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
I remember it though. Yeah.
Yeah. So I encountered that. I think it was like the Fire Realm or something like that. And I did the same thing with Bayonetta, where like I just wanted to do even better in those like arenas. And for some reason I wasn't like, oh, let me go, level up, quote unquote, level up Kratos. Let me go get more abilities, things like that. I just wanted to do better with the loadout that I had. So I just kind of like mentally got stuck on that and never came back to it. So yeah, I got to get back to it.
Well, God of War Ragnarok comes out September 19th. So if you're going to get back to it, you got about a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would be remiss if I didn't mention this though. It is going to require a PlayStation Network account, and you are going to have to connect it to the game. Now,
is it confirmed that it's required?
Yes. So the account for sure is going to be required to play the game, which is why, like, people in countries that don't have PlayStation Network access cannot buy this game. But the biggest worry that I have is does that mean that they're going to be using the overlay? Because that's really the biggest problem. If they're going to be using the PlayStation overlay, that does not support Linux, which means it won't launch on Steam Deck.
What's an example of a game that requires a PSN account but does not have the PS overlay?
I guess there really hasn't been that many yet. Ghost of Tsushima had it for the multiplayer, but that's disabled on the Steam Deck, and you don't have to log into the account to do the single player. The only other one that they're starting to do this with is Concord, and that's a multiplayer game that requires it, and it just won't run on the Steam Deck.
Yeah, so there are other games that don't have a PSN login, but they have like other things like Epic Online Services in Sackboy.
Yes,
so that's why I'm like, I mean, I don't have it. Hopefully we'll get it soon, but like, I'm pretty sure this just means no Steam Deck compatibility unless they do something different.
Yeah. No, I feel like PlayStation kind of rushed bringing out the overlay. Like I remember when they first started putting games on Steam, and they like pushed the Steam Deck a lot. Like, the companies were advertising that it is playable on the Steam Deck and you can enjoy it on the Steam Deck. And, it felt like that they wanted it to be Steam Deck compatible. But it's sounding more and more like it's just, they're starting to wean away from it. And it's sad because like looking at Ragnarok, it should be able to run on the Steam Deck without a problem. Like, I don't know if it'll hit like 60 frames per second, but
sure.
It's going to be playable for sure. Like, if it's just looking at the specs. So it concerns me that the account is required and it's not really giving us more information about if there's going to be an overlay or, if it's just like an account linking. Because if it's an account linking, we have so many different games where we have to do that. I mean, Prince of Persia, we have to go through the Ubisoft launcher, which is technically connecting a Ubisoft account. So, I mean, we kind of already do it.
All of the publishers have it, right? Like all of the big publishers, EA, Microsoft, Ubisoft, they all have some sort of login process. And even like some of the smaller, some of the more like double A's, right? Like they have more of an optional thing like CD Projekt Red, Larian, those things are more optional, but they still exist. And so, it would really suck if the only option is to not be able to play this on Linux.
Yeah, I really hope that it's either optional or it's just account linking and not overlay. Or, best case scenario, they make the overlay Linux compatible. That would be great. Because it's a weird thing because it's not anti-cheat. Like, anti-cheat, I could maybe understand a little bit more just because it's, that there's so many other companies that are doing that. But it's an overlay. That's just a weirder beast to me.
This is pure speculation. Which is, I wonder if like this has to do with trophies, right? Like some sort of kernel level check, or let's call it anti-cheat, right? Like anti-tampering, to ensure that people aren't like, just getting trophies like you can do with Steam achievements, right? Like you can, it's pretty easy to get a Steam achievement.
It's easy to do it.
Yeah. So it may be some sort of anti-tampering.
I haven't seen, and especially not kernel level, I haven't seen anything come out saying that PlayStation was enacting anything kernel level.
No, but I haven't seen anything to the contrary either, right? That's so like fair. It seems based on the logs that I've seen if you look on like the GitHub tracker for Proton, you can see different games. And so I don't think Concord is there yet. God of War Ragnarok is obviously not going to be there yet, but Ghost of Tsushima is there. And you can see people's comments on sort of the reverse engineering that they've done so far. And they haven't rolled out any like kernel level work.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's unclear. It's unclear why it's not Linux compatible. And the fact that like Valve hasn't done anything here makes me think that there's probably not much they can do here, because I think they would be, right on top of it like they are with everything else.
PlayStation games are big. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
No, it's at least, hopefully it's going to be able to be played on the Steam Deck, because otherwise I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to play it on there.
Yeah.
Speaking of kernel level, though, see me segue
this.
My mind is running. Mind's running.
Yeah.
Recently, if you haven't heard about it, there was a gigantic outage for Windows Windows computers for companies due to a driver issue from a company called CrowdStrike. And because of that, all these devices or computers were shut down and had the blue screen of death. And it was because of a kernel level driver that was used for this antivirus. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure CrowdStrike is an antivirus.
Security software.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So recently, there was a report from The Verge that went over a blog post that was made by John Cable, who's the Vice President of Program Management for Windows Servicing and Delivery. And he dropped some hints about wanting to move away from having kernel level access, which, if that does happen, which is, I wouldn't say it's unlikely, but they have a lot of hurdles to go through. And after this issue, I would say that there might be more push for it. If this happens, we could see the end of kernel level anti-cheat, and full optimism on display. It could mean that games that require kernel level anti-cheat might be playable on the Steam Deck. They did, in the blog post, Cable does bring out some alternatives, VBS enclaves and Microsoft Azure's attestation advancements, which, I don't know if they change the anti-cheats to utilize those. I don't know how well that would translate over to Linux, but it's if full optimism looking at this, it could mean that those games might be playable.
Yeah, I can't say I share the optimism at this point. So I think Microsoft has tried, to move away from letting third-party vendors into the kernel. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some concerns about anti-competitive, even though Apple has done the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. There are some concerns there about what that means for those vendors and the level of access that Microsoft has in comparison to those vendors. So basically, those vendors stop that from happening, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of them, right? It's not just CrowdStrike, and it's not just kernel-level anti-cheat.
Yeah.
So there is political friction when it comes to Microsoft moving away from that. But then on top of that, the notion of kernel-level anti-cheat. So what would likely happen if vendors don't get access to the kernel is that they would get access to APIs that give them kernel level. It would be a kernel level operations, right? They still need to do operations that happen at the kernel level. It's just it would happen by way of this API. So then now, for that to happen, we would have to have some sort of translation layer for that API that doesn't even exist yet in Linux, and likely doesn't do much, right? Because part of the problem with the way Linux is right now is that there's very little confidence that that you could do a kernel level protection, right? So you'd have to have some API or proxy for the API to sort of handle that.
I would say I err more on the optimistic side, but I do share the same sentiment that it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
I want it to happen, and it's a nice thought when you see, them have, and I would say this is a more legitimate reason to push for getting companies out of kernel level access, because something like this was just insane.
Yeah.
There were full airports where all the computers were down, thousands and thousands of people that could not fly, and the businesses lost millions of dollars just from something that it wasn't even Microsoft's fault, so I can see why like there is more of a push now for it.
If there was ever a time to try it, it would be right now.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it's possible it could happen, but does that mean that we would be able to play these games? Probably not.
No.
I really want to be optimistic. I want to say yes, I really do, but probably not.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's sad to say. I would love, even though I'm not a big Call of Duty fan, I would like the option. I'd like the option to play, Call of Duty on the Steam Deck, but
yeah,
unless Windows is on there, you can't.
I would like the option. I know we just finished it, but I would like the option to play Ragnarok on Steam Deck. So
would be nice, right?
Would be nice. Absolutely. So it'd be good.
Since we're already talking about Windows already, I would like to go into the SteamOS beta that just dropped. So there was a new SteamOS beta that dropped a couple of days ago, and there were the usual fixes. There were some good ones in there, but there was one specific input fix, or I guess support, that they added in, which raised some not flags, but just curiosity. Eyebrows. That's the word, eyebrows. I was about to say curiosity flags, which doesn't make sense when I just said not flags.
Yeah.
But in the SteamOS beta, they added support for ROG Ally keys.
Yeah.
And they added support for the Windows Bluetooth driver, but I think that's for something else. But what
do you mean by that? We'll come back to that.
In the new BIOS, there was a new BIOS with this SteamOS beta update, and add support for the Windows Bluetooth driver. But for the ROG Ally keys, I thought that was interesting, because why would they mention another handheld that is Windows, that has the Windows operating system? And I don't think, if SteamOS was going to be on another a Windows handheld, I don't believe they would make an image specifically for the ROG Ally. So for me, looking at it, I thought this could be like the start of them ramping up to create and release a desktop image so that we could install SteamOS on Windows devices.
Yeah. So I think you picked on what is the actual curious thing about this, right? Which is, why is it in the patch notes? It's not that they did it. It's that it's in the patch notes that makes it weird. Yeah. Because we've actually, not you and I, but many others of us, right, have been discussing this, and I'm tempted to say it's a nothing burger. So, so like, but the thing that's keeping me from 100% saying it's a nothing burger is the fact that it's in the patch notes. Why did they put it in there?
Like, why? If they don't have the intention of bringing it outside of the Steam Deck, why would they add the support, though? That's the other thing, because you can't use the Ally as a controller for the Steam Deck.
That part I can explain. So, so they've done this before with other things. It just wasn't in the patch notes. But essentially, you can think of it as they're pulling like two different types of updates from the kernel, right? So whenever the kernel is updated, they may also pull those updates down to their kernel. One of those types of updates is the one that you know of. It's every year or so, they update the kernel, the entire kernel, to a more recent version.
Yeah.
Right? More frequently than that, and the other bullet point in here that's important is the Asus ROG Raikiri Pro controller. More often than they update the entire kernel, they will frequently update, pull new drivers for new controllers and other similar devices, right? So if there's a new driver for, let's say, a monitor, I would assume that would be something that they just kind of pull down indiscriminately. I think, if I recall correctly, the commit for the Raikiri Pro and the ally keys are the same commit. So
Okay.
they come together. So like you get it for free just by doing the pull for the Raikiri Pro. So we were talking about this, Bill from Nerd Nest, myself, and one of the Bazite devs, and Bill said, isn't it like marking a tree? And for, I go into the woods, I mark a tree to be cut down, and I don't cut it down, right? I just leave it up. And only know it's more like you went and downloaded a ROM set for Super Nintendo games, and you played, some of the games, but most of those games you just didn't play, right? Like you just got them for, for getting these games. Same thing with like a Humble Bundle, right? Like I was just talking about Gotham Knights. I get it for free for buying the other games that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So they kind of just get this support for free by just pulling in support for controllers. So that's why I'm like it costs them nothing to do this. So this is just normal, like, business for them. What's the cost? You know what I mean? It's just their normal operating, right? Like, but the thing that's weird is that it's in the changelog.
Yeah. I was about to say, everything you're saying makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, especially if the controller and keys is part of the same driver.
Yeah.
But then why would they mention the ally at all? Like, if it's there, it's there. Like, they don't have to mention it just because it's part of the same thing. Why mention
that
ROG
one I
ally
can't
keys?
That one I can't answer. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
That one's weird. And then I mentioned it a second ago, was that they added support from the Windows Bluetooth driver.
Yeah.
I don't think that is actually related to my whole desktop image hope. Yeah. I think that one is more that they might be gearing up to add Windows OS support for the OLED Steam Deck, because it's the OLED firmware.
Yes.
Or the OLED BIOS firmware.
Yes.
So I that's what I think it is that they're gearing up to just be able to support Windows installation on the OLED Steam Deck.
Yeah, and I mean, this makes it, I think it's still missing like speaker support, but I think this makes it relatively playable now, Windows on OLED. I haven't tried it, but
I haven't tried either. I don't know what was missing. I don't remember what was missing yet.
I don't remember if the graphics driver is there or not, but that would obviously be the big one.
That would be a really big one.
But if they have the graphics driver and they have the Bluetooth driver, then that's almost enough to, like, I can kind of play. Like, it's not good, but
it'll work.
Right, exactly.
So I think that's just something to look into. But yeah, I think that's just for OLED supporting Windows, not for
agreed
SteamOS desktop.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so since we were talking about that, though, there is one other thing that was fixed in the SteamOS beta that I do want to circle back to.
Yeah.
So in the beta, they talk about improving recovery for when the Steam installation is corrupted. And the reason that they did that is because there was an issue with a specific launcher that you can get on Steam that would cause the Steam installation to corrupt, where you would have to re-image and factory reset your Steam Deck to fix it. And that was the Jackbox Megapicker.
You didn't have to, but that was the easiest
way. Was there a way around it? Because I remember people like saying, "Oh, well, this is what I had to do to fix it."
Yeah. So if so there is a person in the Steam Deck Discord that's also in the Fandit Deck Discord. I think his name is Nagito. So shout out to him. He's been helping a lot of people out on the Steam Deck Discord, helping to recover their like installation. So my understanding is that what's happening is that it's corrupting the installation of Steam itself, right? And so what happens is when it tries to go into game mode, it can't, because Steam itself is corrupted.
Yeah.
But if you could force it into desktop mode, that would work, right? And so, like, I think he's doing a thing where, like, you hit a certain key combination with a wired keyboard and you can get a shell open. And once you have a shell open, you can bring up desktop mode. Something, I'm super trivializing it, right? But it's something to that effect. And then you can, once you get there, I think he's like reinstalling Steam or something like that. The games will still be there, things like that. It's just that installation was corrupted, so you have to fix that install. But the problem is getting back into desktop mode, which I suspect is what Valve fixed here. I'm always so what's the word? not like mad, but like I just wish there would be some more detail on some of these, right? Like that's a pretty important change that they made here.
Yeah.
And so Pierre Lou from Valve like tweeted about this 369 beta. And
I saw your comment. Did he ever respond to that comment?
Nothing. So for the audience, I asked, there's a lot to be excited about in this update, but specifically, can we get more detail on what that graceful recovery is? Does it fall back to desktop mode if the Steam install gets corrupted? And I also pointed out that there's no real way for us to test this. I guess I could go into desktop mode, uninstall Steam, see what happens. So maybe I will try that now that you said it out loud.
I'm kind of curious. Yeah, if you do, let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know because I want to write an article about it. Yeah. But thankfully, Valve did implement this improved recovery, and the Megapicker did get a fix for this. So they released an update specifically where they said that that they used that would cause like a boot loop like that needed to be fixed, but Valve used the word corruption, so
I think it was a black screen.
Yes, and so, but again, it was from the Steam install getting corrupted.
Yes.
So that is fixed now, and before that, Valve did implement a little hot fix where the Megapicker would be forced to use Proton, so they would have to run the Windows version, and it would be perfectly fine. So it was just the Linux version of this launcher.
It's also curious. It's also curious that a game could somehow corrupt the installation of Steam. Like what happened there.
Which is a whole other can of worms to get into. Like, how did it get to that point where it could just completely corrupt Steam? Like, how is it able to do that?
Yeah, so weird.
So that I would like to know more about that, but I think that's going to be tough to get more information out of.
I agree.
But it is. I'm glad that it's been fixed, and there was a workaround before the fix came through.
Yep.
But it's still just crazy that could even happen.
Agreed.
But speaking of boot loops, Decky Loader had a fun little issue earlier this week where they actually had to delist a plugin because it would cause a boot loop issue with the pre-release for their next version. The specific plugin that they got rid of was the music control plugin, which I never used, but I remember posting about it, and High Tech Lowlife commented that he really liked the plugin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now I don't remember if that's actually what happened. I know someone did.
Okay, all right.
Oh man, I'm gonna look it up right now. I feel bad if I got that wrong. I feel really bad.
It sounds like something High Tech would like.
Yeah, that he would bring up, right?
Yes, for sure.
So, but now I have to go. through and look because
I can talk about not necessarily the boot loop thing, but just like Decky Loader in general. While you look it up, which is
High Tech Lowlife. Yeah. I was right.
All right, good. I was like, I'm pretty sure you were right. Like, I don't even know this conversation, but it really sounds like something that HTLL would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Decky, which is to say I love it. I love that it exists. And yeah, it's not really love-hate because the one side is I love that it exists. I love that people are able to do this, all of that stuff. The other side is not hate. It's just that my life using Steam Deck is generally more convenient when I don't use Decky. Right, like
that's fair. Yeah, no, it really is.
Yeah,
like the Decky has tons of issues when I guess it has tons of issues when anything gets updated.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't use a ton of plugins anymore. I think the biggest one that I still use is Steam Grid DB, just so that I can customize artwork. That's my favorite one by far.
The one.
So Junk Store is a very close second just because of what it's capable of doing. I don't think it's reached it just yet, but oh my, if you're able to, if they can get that, if that support gets in, it's going to be it'll probably be the greatest plugin on the Decky loader or the Decky store outside of the Steam Deck HQ plugin.
That's awesome. Yeah, outside of Steam Deck HQ, nice
Yeah,
plug.
that one's clearly the best one of all
That's
of them.
the best one, guys.
It's still coming.
Yeah,
still coming.
Yeah, and to be fair, I really hate like not, and I'm not about to pit them against each other, but I really hate that, like, you know, these are all like open source projects, really passionate people. So like I really hate like even just like thinking about like Bazite versus Chimera, that sort of thing, where it's like, unfortunately, we generally speaking have to pick one, right? Like one of these things. And so like for Steam, non-Steam games, the one I've been using is non-Steam launchers. And I'm perfectly happy with that, right? Because I didn't realize it was this seamless where like you install the launcher or you just install non-Steam launchers, right? And you in that install, you say which launchers you want to show up in game mode. And then once you're in game mode, you can install the game from the launcher. And then when you restart Steam, the game is now in your library. And that is, I don't have to do anything. I just install the game. And so that's pretty neat. So I really enjoy non-Steam launchers, and it feels so far like it doesn't break, like you said, when Steam decides to update.
Yeah. No, it's tough to stick with it. If you're, especially like, I think it's even harder in like our case because we're constantly like when we're testing and checking stuff, switching to like the beta branch, the preview branch, the main branch. You know, it does mess with Decky since it's like it's best if you're just staying on the stable branch. Yeah, but we don't do that.
I'm not. Yeah, and I mean, like I would lose a lot, right? Like. There are like long living features that are only in beta. So is family sharing still in beta, or is that out of beta by now?
I believe it's still in beta.
Yeah, so that's
I believe it is.
I'm pretty sure it is too.
Recording.
Exactly. So like between family sharing and game recording, I basically can't. I can't leave beta. So yeah, but that's just me. I know a lot of people don't use those features.
It is tough. And what is it? I do believe that there was some. I guess there were some plugins on top of that were delisted as well for, you know, because they went and did some testing. So there may have been more plugins on top of that that were delisted even more, which is a shame. Because again, a lot of these plugins, I do like them. I mean, I used to really like Decky Recorder, not really as necessary now. Though I do still use it just because whenever I test games, I always do it in stable. Like if I review a game, I want to do it on the base product that most people are going to stick with. Yeah. So,
and to be fair, game recording, it's a beta feature, and it really is a beta feature.
It is a beta feature. Yes.
It for me, it works like half the time in terms of actually recording the game I'm playing. Maybe half the time.
And I record long like strings of gameplay. And if the gameplay is too big, if the file size is too big, I can't move it. Like I have like it will not like send it to it won't even export it into an MP4. It was broken for me when I last tried it. So I have to use Decky Recorder right now. Yeah. But I would love to use like the fact that Valve is bringing game recording in general, like that was a huge requested feature for just having it on the Steam Deck. So it's really great that they're doing it at all. Yeah. But
yeah, and it's a really cool implementation with like the markers and the like different modes, stuff like that. So it's a cool implementation. So
I thought it was cool. I remember, I don't know of how other games that have implemented those game recording features. I do know I got excited. I was reviewing a Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak. Yeah. And I remember getting the update come in that mentions the game recording feature, and they added in those features. I thought that was just such a cool little thing that they did. Yeah. Especially because it's one of my favorite JRPG series of all time.
That's awesome.
It's like up there with the Tales of series. Yeah. And Kingdom Hearts obviously above all of it. But I loved the Trails series, and I love what they did, and as it spanned throughout all of the games. Like it's just, oh man, I could go into it, but I thought it was really cool that they added that.
Agreed.
out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I did not expect anyone to add it yet.
And there is a like you can search for games that support that are what's it called? Game recording timeline enhanced games is what it's called.
Yeah.
So you can search in steamdb.info for games that are timeline enhanced, and there are a couple of them. The only other than Trails Through Daybreak or Trails, what's it called?
It's Trails Through Daybreak.
Trails. Other than that one, there was like other than Trails Through Daybreak.
Like not even gonna say it again.
No.
That one.
That one. There was like a weird like 2D. It looked like a 2D fighting game, but it was turn based. So I was already like, oh yeah, this is my jam. I'm into this. I've got to look it up now. But that was another game that was timeline enhanced, and so I was like, oh, I should try that. I'll find out what the name is. Yeah.
Yeah, please. I'm curious. Just because, as far as I know, Daybreak was really the only one that like came to me and that I saw. But I know there's more. I'm sure, and you just confirmed that. So there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, Decky's a tough one. I love what it does, and I love the passion and like the work that everyone puts in to make these plugins that really do make the Steam Deck such a great device to have, like a well-rounded device that has all these unique features. But it's, I guess, tough when it's just not supported by Valve at all, to the point where it just keeps on breaking. So
yep,
it's cool that it's there, but it's tough to actually use it.
Yeah. So I just looked it up there. If you go to steamdb.info, they have like a advanced search with like refiners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Called Instant Search. And in there's a refiner for Steam Timeline under features. And there's already, allegedly, I'm going to explain why I say allegedly, 39 games that support this enhanced timeline.
Okay, that's pretty solid.
Yeah. And the game I was thinking of is called Mega Knockdown. It is a fast-paced fighting game that anyone can play because it's turn-based. That's straight from the tin. It's in early access. It looks pretty fun. I haven't tried it. This is not an endorsement, but it just looks interesting. And so this is one of those games that is supposedly timeline enhanced. So I'll try it. The reason I say supposedly is because Steam is like notoriously like you can just check boxes and say you do stuff. So I don't know if this is just one of those things where a developer can check a box whether or not it's actually timeline enhanced or what level of support they have for the timeline enhancement. So just putting that out there.
How interesting. I was looking at the store page for it, and under like its features, Steam Timeline does appear there.
Nice.
So that's my first time seeing that. And I'm looking at all the games. Like you can click on it on Steam and see all the games that are actually supported. There's Trails Through Daybreak. We have Counter-Strike, Dota 2, Left 4 Dead 2, Whispering Lane Horror. There's Mega Knockdown. I've never heard of a lot of these games.
No, exactly.
It's a lot of a lot of games are coming soon, and then some like smaller ones like ASMR Lightness, light painting. That's a game you want a Steam Timeline for.
Yeah, I'm sticking to the Valve games. Trails Through Daybreak because great series. I haven't gotten into the series at all, but I just know from people that are into it that it's a great series. But also the developer that handles like the PC ports is Durante. You know who Durante is?
That handles the PC ports for like the Falcom games?
Yeah. Or many of them, let's say. So including this.
Is that a company or is that a person?
Durante is a person. The company is called...
Is it PH3?
Yes, I think it's PH3. Okay. So Durante is... do you remember back in the day when Dark Souls sucked on PC?
Yeah.
Like it was framed...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I remember.
Yes. Durante is the person that made DS Fix. And to me, like started a revolution in terms of like, this is the standard going forward for PC games. We need unlocked frame rate, arbitrary resolution setting. That if you don't have that, you're not a PC game.
All right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew PH3 worked on these, but I did not know of the the history
Yes.
behind it. So that good for Durante. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank
Especially
you.
for the Trails games. I love the Trails games. I'm shocked. I'm sad that you have not played them. If you need any of them, let me know. I have all of them.
I'm super aware of like the cult following with all of those Niham games. So like East,
Yeah,
Trails,
East is also really good, though.
Mhm.
I personally like Trails more just because of how interconnected all the games are, but it's not necessarily interconnected. So like you could play Trails Through Daybreak right now without any prior knowledge of the past games.
Yeah,
But
that's nice.
if you know the past games, you'll recognize characters that just come in.
Yeah.
Like there are a couple of key characters that like are there and they're decently prominent, and you wouldn't know their history, but they've got a very, very interlocked history with like the older games.
Yeah.
Like one of them even goes all the way back to like the Trails in the Sky series.
Amazing.
So, which are like the first 3 games of the entire series. And you basically saw this person like grow up.
Wow.
Like it's just really cool. And it's like I don't know. It's like God of War. So if you play you could play God of War 2018 and still understand and play that and play Ragnarok and still enjoy the game.
You can get a little bonus feeling if you.
Yeah. Like when I played God of War 2018, it felt so much more powerful because I knew who Kratos was before.
Yeah.
You know, seeing the change and evolution in his personality and his demeanor as he's trying to do right by his son.
Yeah.
Which he failed to do to his wife and daughter in the previous games, is just it really elevates the experience. And it's the same thing with the Trails games.
Yeah, makes sense. The one Nihon game that I own that I do want to try, it looks really like quirky, and I like that, is Xanadu Next. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think you should just scrap everything
and just do
play Trails in the Sky. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Please, for the love of God, yes.
Sounds like a
plan. But 2 other little quick things. One thing that I thought was really interesting, I had no idea, but it makes complete sense. Time Crisis 5. You remember playing that in like arcades? They have the like model gun and everything.
For sure.
I did not know, like, even though it makes complete sense, I just never really thought about it. It's a full-fledged like PC game. It was made with Unreal Engine 3.
Yes.
So like they have a way to download it to play on PCs. So I remember seeing a tweet about that, and we got it working on the Steam Deck.
Yep.
And it runs extremely well. Like it sticks to 60 frames per second. Everything looks clear, looks smooth. There is still some controller issues that we are looking at, but was it Deck Wizard created a controller scheme that we used, and it works really well. I think the only thing that's missing is gun switching.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure what the key binding for that is, so it's hard to translate. But you know, we have gyro controls where you can move the crosshair. You can add in tokens as much as you want. It runs relatively well. I suck at it still. I'm not better with the gun or without, but it does run, and it does run well.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
There are some places where you can modify, like, I don't know if it's a config file or a script. But like, there's just so little information on what the gun button would like. How do you do that? So
yeah,
I haven't figured it out either, but I haven't spent enough time with it yet. I did also notice, like, if you like graphical glitches, like screen turns green every once in a while.
See, I never got the screen turns green, but I did get the subtitles cutting off at the bottom.
Weird. Yeah.
But I didn't get a green screen.
So it's not, it's obviously not perfect, but I was surprised as well that it just, it was pretty easy to get running on deck, because all you have to do is point to the exe and set Proton. That's
it.
Yeah.
Were you, out of curiosity, which Proton were you using to play it?
I think I just used experimental, actually.
Okay. Because that's the one I was using too. So I was curious if maybe a different Proton version could cause some of those issues.
Yeah.
But the last thing I wanted to talk about, Time Crisis 5 is awesome. I just wanted to say that it was just really cool to be able to play it that way.
For sure.
The last thing I want to talk about is a game called Creatures of Ava, which just released yesterday.
Yeah.
Or was it yesterday or 2 days ago? One of those
2 days ago.
But before the game came out, it had the unsupported badge. And then when it came out, it switched immediately to verified. Now, usually I have a little bit more to say about that because we're in the process of reviewing the game and we got a little bit late, but we still got it before it released. The game has no reason to be unsupported, like at all. It ran perfectly fine. Obviously it's not perfect in general and there were some hiccups, but that was me trying to play it above 30. If I was playing at 30 frames per second, works really well. So I was confused why the game had the unsupported badge, and it's fixed now. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because it is another issue with the verified system in general. Like there was no information about why it was rated unsupported, because sometimes they provide information, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But I just am not sure why it was rated unsupported and why they would do that, because it was fully playable. And the fact that they had it there might have discouraged people from like wishlisting or looking at the game. And luckily they changed it when it was released, but it was running well on the deck before it was released.
Yeah.
So why was it rated unsupported?
Yeah.
That's just, I have my issues with the verified system, but this just kind of highlighted them a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I've said several times at this point, I don't really look at verified at all.
No.
In fact, circling back to our extension Decky loader talk, right, our plugin talk, that would probably be the second most important plugin for me personally, is the Proton DB plugin. Yeah. Even then, I mean, like I just can't. I don't depend on the badge in any way. Mm-hmm. So even if it is unsupported, and even if there are some reports on Proton, I will still give it a try, right? So unless it's like, it's kernel-level anti-cheat, there's nothing that we're going to do to get that to work.
You can't really do much about that.
That's that. But if it's a game I'm interested in and I own it, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try it on Steam Deck, try a couple different Protons, see what happens. And yeah. So yeah, I'm in agreement. Do you know if like, even if you do know, I don't know how much you can speak to this, but do you know if the developers had their gripes about this and spoke to Valve or anything like that?
I don't believe so, or I'm not sure. That's not something I've asked them, just because I haven't had the chance to. Mm-hmm. But I would be surprised, because when I got the key, I was told that it's actually playable on the Steam Deck. So seeing the unsupported badge would kind of, if I was the developer, like me personally,
excuse me,
it's okay. Totally okay. If I was the developer, I would be a little bit annoyed about that, just because I know that it's actually running well. So it was weird to me to see that as someone from the outside, reviewing the game. And Proton TB is a fantastic resource to look at. There is one other place that I would check as well, this weird website called Steam Deck HQ. I've heard that they review games and they make sure that they're running on the Steam Deck, and
plugin coming soon.
Unlike other places which are community driven, and so you can't really tell how much they've actually played. I've heard Steam Deck HQ, they play through the games. It's weird.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah, nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you. I was a little snuck that in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it just highlights another, the issue I have with the whole system that's in place, So obviously we have our gripes about it. We've all talked about it to some degree. I think we've all on our respective channels have discussed our issues with the system, and it doesn't seem like it's completely improving, which is kind of a shame, because I would like to see it improve. I think it's a great system. It's just they're not doing the testing that's necessary for it, and clearly they miss a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. great system that's in place. I don't think it needs to. I think it's being highlighted way too much, or they're just testing for too much, and they can't do it accurately. Like, I think the whole definition of it needs to change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty vocal about the fact that, yeah, Valve often halfway does something.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are things to get very excited about, and we get excited about them, including myself. And then they drop support at some way through, or they don't fully do what, you expected that they were going to do. And I think this is one of those scenarios where, like, I mean, it takes a lot of money, right, to go through every single game and test it properly. I get that.
Yeah.
But guess who has the money to do that?
That's true. If anyone has the money,
Right.
it's Valve.
Right.
And it's their system. And it's a great system. I just wish. See, the thing is, for me, I don't think they have to change much to make the system accurate while, like, still doing the same testing that they're doing. The big thing for me is that they are testing for it to be a great experience on the Steam Deck, right? My big issue is that they use that wording. They say it's a great experience. A game that's verified, great experience. It's almost never the case. And then they change their rules constantly. Like, there are games that you do not get a great experience unless you change their graphical settings. And for some games, it's still verified. For other games, it could be playable. And one of the reasons is you have to change the graphical settings. And that's just weird. So they constantly change their own rules for specific games. And most games are not a great experience right out of the box anyways. So
yeah, I
would say, oh yeah.
Well, I just think that the word great is extremely subjective, right? So that's a difficult thing to nail down. There was a lot of talk early on about how great means at minimum 30 FPS, but, like, does it? I don't see that anywhere in their documentation. I think they once said something about 30 FPS, but it didn't sound to me, it's been a while since I remember what they said, but it didn't sound to me like it was a hard and fast rule that it's 30 FPS. Nor would I personally expect it to be. I would expect different rules, but not for different games. I think what you're saying does happen, where it's like, Sony gets a little more leeway in what's verified because it's Sony, right? Or because these are popular games.
There are definitely games. I mean, look at Remnant 2. Remnant 2, when that came out, it was immediately verified. That game should have been nowhere near that verified badge.
The most surprising thing the most surprising thing about Remnant 2, because we both covered that in detail at the time. And there was a recent game, I don't remember what now, but there was a recent game that made me, like, think about Remnant 2, and I went back to look at Remnant 2, and it was unsupported, right? But what's crazier is I went back on SteamDB to see when it was set to unsupported, and it was literally 3 weeks later. Like, nothing had changed except the perception of the game, right? And to be fair, I guess you could say, is that some of it is sort of crowdsourced, right? Because you have that feedback system, and I'm sure that Valve takes that feedback system into account. So if a bunch of people are saying, no, this is not a verified experience, then they're gonna change it, which I think is the right call. But it's just curious that was verified to begin with.
Exactly. And it feels like they still do that kind of stuff. It's just, it's hard to test it and find it every single time, just because of the sheer amount of games that are releasing on Steam. But it definitely still happens. But that's really my biggest thing, is that the great experience is too subjective. It's the same. I have the same issue with, like, those there are YouTube videos or that people will make of, like, them playing the game, and they'll say it's like the best settings for the game. I hate that. It's a keyword. I know why they do it, but it's too definitive, when in reality, most of the time, they're not the best settings. Like, there's a couple that I know of, like, people that do it, and I know they only play, like, maybe an hour of the game, and they'll say that they have the best settings. And it's not true at all. but like it just using the word best settings, it's something that I try my hardest to not do unless I know definitively there are no better settings. And
Yeah.
that's usually the best on deck badge that we have, where like the game is just right out of the box perfect to play, where
Yeah.
it's 90, 60 or 90 frames per second, battery drain is extremely low, or there are no graphical settings at all to change, so there are no other settings.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with like the verified system. I feel like what Valve should do, instead of like trying to find a great experience, is to remarket the verified system as just testing to make sure it runs. Because for clearly for what they're doing, the verified system is not working to find games that are actually great experiences.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like, personally, I don't feel like a lot of them are great experiences, but I feel like anyone who is really looking into what a great experience on a Steam Deck could be, it does not match for a lot of games that have that verified badge. So I want them to change the perception of it, change what the verified badge actually means. And instead of trying to claim that it means good performance or just a great overall experience, just does it run on the Steam Deck? Can it launch? Can it be played?
Yeah. I think of not necessarily verified, but just this entire system. So like verified, let's say verified and playable, roughly as would Sony or Microsoft allow this to be released in its current state on their consoles, which is a very low bar, right? Right.
That is true.
But
that is true.
Yeah, it's not. But to your point, that's not a great experience. That's just would they allow it to be released? But yeah, I don't know. It is a difficult problem to solve. I'll give them that. But it does feel like I am against, like, let's say a hard, it has to be 30 frames per second, but I'm not against doing that in sort of like a stratified way. Like turn-based games should be this many frames per second. Action games should be this many frames per second. Something like that at a certain resolution or so. I don't know exactly, but like I feel like there's something they could do there to make the rules clearer.
I feel like that would be that would just give them more work to do, though. That's the thing. Like maybe when they have the defined set, it won't be more work, but at the same time, they still are going to have to test and make sure that it can hit all those marks.
Yeah,
I think
that is my main complaint, right? Is that they're not putting in enough work. I think what you're saying is the other side, is that they could continue doing little work and just change what this means. For me, I would say they have the money to do it. They should be putting in more work into what they think is verified.
I don't think that's going to happen, though. That's the problem. Is if it hasn't happened now, I mean, and I'm glad it hasn't happened now, only because that's why we exist. That's why Steam Deck HQ exists, is because they don't do it.
Yeah,
you know, and so we do. We pick up the slack.
Yeah.
So I don't want them. I don't think that they are going to implement that. I think it's more realistic to think that they're just going to keep doing the same thing. And I guess my solution is keep doing the same thing. Just change your wording. Just look for other things and don't say, hey, if it's verified, you're going to have a good time. Because there's a lot of games where if it's verified, you're not going to have a good time. Unless you change some things. And then there's games that are like unsupported and such. And like, I think that the verified system does have to exist. I think it really does, because of the I guess the need for Proton, and just some games play well with it and some don't. So I think the verified system should be in place, but I think it should be more like Proton DB, where it's like, how well does it play with Proton? Like, does it run? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that would be the most realistic and achievable thing that Valve could do without having to invest any more money and without having to really change anything. So
fair enough.
That's my feeling. Either way, it needs to change to some degree. The system that's in place, I don't trust it completely. I look at it more like, can it run? No. If it's got the green check mark, that means it'll launch. That's great. But I would never look at it and say, oh, that means it's going to run real well.
Yeah. No, I can't do that. Yep. I agree.
All right. Well, I think that's it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. And again, it feels really good to be back. A lot of discussions that I can get off my chest because I'm constantly looking at this stuff and I just want to talk about it. So, yep. I'm glad that we were able to find time, and thank you again, Richard, for making the time to come on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Noah.
And yeah, I think that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you guys again for listening. And if you like it, tell your friends, tell your family.
Yep. Absolutely.
You know, follow us wherever the podcast is, because I think we're on YouTube, we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on something else as well. It's just Amazon, maybe.
Yeah.
Like,
all the
big
things.
ones are Apple and Spotify. I think Amazon, but definitely YouTube. So follow or subscribe to us wherever we are. Check out our website if you want to see some, the news as it's coming out and our reviews for upcoming games. And yeah, thank you guys again for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, guys.